welcome back to the second half of Report Desk Africa. If you've just joined us, you've not missed so much. You just missed the Cherry News Nigeria got of the reopening of the third mainland bridge. But now we go to health matters because the world recently marked the 17th annual World Autism Awareness Day with its theme, Moving from Surviving to Thriving. It's a day set up by the United Nations to highlight the need for increased understanding and acceptance of autistic people. Although progress has been made in diagnosing and, of course, supporting autism spectrum disorder patients, it is still a growing problem that is estimated to affect 1 in 100 people globally and 2.3% of new cases seen over a period of 6 years. Yes, you heard that right. But before we go talk about this, let's quickly take a look at this package so that we can have more understanding of what it is.
Since its establishment in 2007 by the United Nations General Assembly, April 2nd has been designated as World Autism Awareness Day, a day dedicated to promoting the full realization of human rights and fundamental freedoms for individuals on the autism spectrum.
It's a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects communication, behavior, and social interaction in individuals.
In addition to medical care, Nigeria boasts several centers devoted to the care of autistic individuals. However, the absence of accurate statistics and widespread awareness poses significant hurdles to effectively managing this condition.
In our local environment in Nigeria, we need to make people to know more about it. Parents and families take it as taboo to have children with such disabilities. I have to self-study by myself to know what to do with my son. And for the past 30 years, he has developed and achieved a lot for himself.
Our focus this year is to ensure we hear the voices of autistic people from every corner of the world. Being autistic is still vastly misunderstood around the world, but through so many autistic advocates speaking up and sharing their stories of lived experience, we are moving the dial and changing the narrative to be one that is written and told by us.
According to the World Health Organization, autism remains a profoundly overlooked yet highly burdensome health issue, impacting approximately 1 in every 100 children worldwide. Lending her voice to the chorus of awareness, Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, underscores the critical importance of early diagnosis and intervention in unlocking the full potential of individuals with autism.
I recommend to the government and political bodies that health insurance should be made available for children with autism, because these therapies, before you can get the best out of these therapies, they need to be as intensive as possible, and it's a lot of money.
In keeping with the theme for World Autism Awareness Day 2024, Empowering Autistic Voices, this is a call to action to raise awareness, advocate for support, and celebrate the unique abilities of every individual, regardless of the challenges they may face. In Lagos for News Central, I am Dr. Kelechi Okoro.
All right. We probably will be expecting our guests to join us, hopefully, sometime in the course of the show. But between now and then, when she does join us, Niyi, autism is something clearly that the world has been taken seriously, and I think Nigeria should also do the same. Some 2 years ago, I was at a gathering of some parents with their autistic children. It was hosted by the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and I heard stories, particularly from the mothers. Right, and on this occasion, I would like to join my hand in solidarity with mothers who take care of autistic children. Honestly, this is one condition where almost everything stops.
Stops for that
particular I'm saying,
yes,
that particular parent, because you have to take full care of these children. And what broke my heart for the men is that a good number of them said their husbands left, completely left the home and abandoned them take care of these autistic children. There's a lady who is in Surulere who has an autistic center. I can't remember the name of the center now, but it's a big one. And she said she's been trying to build something bigger. She started this venture because she had an autistic child. and she knew how to take care of the child. So other parents were bringing their own children. She's been getting grants from the government, but that it's not even nearly enough at the moment. Of course, considering the economic challenges of the country, things have gotten more difficult. But then it actually is a wake-up call for the government to come in and assist parents who are taking care of autistic children, or people who have centers where autistic children are being taken care of. And like one of the speakers did, one of the respondents did say that there should be some kind of health insurance by the government for autistic children when they're getting medical care.
It's really a big deal, Bernard, sincerely, because I do understand that this thing is a spectrum. The autism disorder is a spectrum, with the IS being where you exhibit the very, very biggest of the deficiencies in terms of maybe attention deficiency or paying attention to details, motor deficiency, and so many other things. And where it hits me the most is for the caregivers, as you've said. They do the most, whether it be their parents, direct biological parents, or it be people who are just there, and people are working in institutions like the one you said. They need to be extra in everything they want to do, because these kids need special attention, special looking over, special way of communication. And as you said, the truth is the government is not really doing so. They are doing something, and I'm so happy.
Especially in Lagos State, to be honest.
In Lagos State, to be honest. And I'm so happy now at the national level, the First Lady actually came on yesterday and, spoke about it, and of course is making donations to this. And it's good that at the federal level, this is actually being spoken about, and this has been put there in it's just like Parkinson's disease.
Yeah.
It's there, but people really don't see it as, because in Nigeria, unlike the foreign counterparts, people get diagnosed at 4 rather. But in Nigeria, you get diagnosed at 8. In fact, according to what I read, the machine that was developed mostly is used to diagnose the male child and not mostly the female child. And the female child tends to mask their autism, which is more dangerous because they keep it within themselves. They don't want people to, but it's not something you can keep, depending on what part of the spectrum you are. If you're at the highest part of the autism spectrum disorder, of course you exhibit more symptoms. But if you're at the lower end, you won't exhibit so much. And I think that we can't do too much when it has to do with autism, because if you've been in this situation, as you've said, I wouldn't say I blame the men and who walked away, sincerely, but at the same time, I won't say that is the best line of action for them to run away. Yes, but because we don't know so many situations as to why they walked away. And that's why you see people like this sometimes given the option of, if we know that this child is going to be having any disorder, let's just terminate this child in the first place rather than have this. It's just like having, once we are both AS, and we're probably an SS child is going to be given birth to. But this is a child that has a right to life, that he has a right to live. And once he's there to live, it is your responsibility as a parent, as a caregiver, to give that child, the necessary care. But they really need help.
They certainly do need help. And one again, like you said, it's a good thing that the First Lady, Mr. Oluremi Tinubu, lent her voice to this particular conversation, and hopefully it won't just be voice. There would also be some kind of not just donation in terms of cash sums, but also in terms of infrastructure and facility to help take care of autistic children. Another thing that clearly can be done and cannot be overemphasized is education, enlightenment, and continuous conversations about autism. Just like Down syndrome and other conditions in people and in children generally, we cannot stop talking about autism. Not just medical practitioners, caregivers, like you mentioned as well, parents, even would-be parents, young people who are growing and about to start life. Nobody knows who would give birth to an autistic child.
Yeah, and that's where the old caveat.
Exactly. There could be certain issues, like for Down syndrome. I know that one of the one of the reasons why a person, from what I've read, may have a child who has a Down syndrome condition, may be giving birth at later ages in your life. It's possible that the children may come out with some kind of condition or the other. But then there have been cases where even young parents, young adults, give birth to children who have certain conditions. So there's no saying what may cause it, who may have it, and who may not. So education, conversations around caregiving, around taking care of Down syndrome patients, and around what to do to avoid, I believe, what to do to avoid possibilities of having children, who may have Down syndrome condition. We cannot stop talking about issues like this.
Yeah, just like this, it's very, very important, I must say, because just like the issue of the sickle cell anemia, pardon me, we've seen cases where awareness has grown so much that people now even want to check their genotype before they go into any form of relationship. Of course, if I know if you're AS, I'm AS, love really is not the thing. It's not the ultimate. Yeah, there are so many other medical conditions, medical status we need to put into consideration before we take that step. So yes, it's important. However, I'm more concerned about inclusion for these people. Inclusion in the essence that not putting them at one corner and saying, oh, this is their space. If it has to do with social interaction, inclusion, if it has to do with education, inclusion, if it has to do with parenting, inclusion, if it has to do with education, inclusion,
I totally agree.
that will make them feel loved. That will make them love and commitment and support.
It actually, is what they need. Rather than discrimination. I totally agree with you, and that's a deep one you said there. Definitely, there has to be inclusion for the children or for the patients who who have autism, the autistic patients, and then for the caregivers, and for the parents particularly. I mean, growing up, I didn't know so much about, of course, as a child, you could tell that this particular child is not like every other child, but we probably didn't know the words for these conditions. And then you could tell that the parents of these children were struggling, and they were kind of, I won't say excommunicated, basically, but you could tell that there was a distance between them and other parents, between their children and other children. Now, there's something that's really disturbing that I actually want to talk about, and I had this conversation with someone, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. There are, and I call them evil people, who have been taking advantage of autistic patients, particularly girls. Growing up, there was a lady who, now I can remember, the girl was autistic, right? And her mom was taking care of her with no other family member. Again, it's possible the father deserted them. We don't know for sure. But the mom was taking care of the girl. And at some point, this girl, autistic to her, in her 30s, got pregnant. Eventually, my mom being a nurse, she was brought to my mom, and my mom tried to interrogate the young girl and the mother. And the girl, having challenges with speech, with cognitive challenges and all. But exactly, but was able to state that there was one brother or one uncle somewhere that lured her with a bottle of soft drink, and took advantage of her and her condition, and she got pregnant. And I know that that's not the first. I've heard other stories like that. There should be punishments for people who take advantage of autistic children, particularly girls, whether girls or boys. People who take advantage of children with certain health or cognitive conditions, there should be punishments meted out to them. So it's a holistic.
It's broad.
It's a holistic preparation that the government and the society generally have to look into in terms of caring for autistic patients.
Yeah, and in fact, in terms of even sensitization, it will go a long way in terms of how people react when they see someone exhibiting symptoms of autism. You understand? Because just like, for example, I see someone having a seizure or something that requires me to do a CPR. Naturally, because the sensitization has gone so wide, people know that, oh, this is what you're to do to actually maybe keep this person alive for medical personnel to arrive. Same thing applies when I see someone exhibiting autistic behavior and I feel, oh, okay, this is actually autism. I just need to try to calm this person down, give the person some space. Know the process on how to handle that situation before it escalates, depending on what, as I said, what spectrum of the disorder the person is. Then the last thing I actually want to put out there is stigmatization. It's huge, it's big, it's enormous, and I can't emphasize this enough, because once we start stigmatizing these people, that's where the masking comes in. They want to mask their autism. They don't want people to know. They're just trying to keep it in within themselves. So I really, as we've seen it, that the First Lady has taken a huge step to want to do something about this. I hope that every other person, private, public sector, institutions, individual organizations actually come together and do something and lay support.
I couldn't agree more, definitely. Thank you so much for that, Niyi. Well, we'll take another quick break after talking about autism, and just like Niyi said, we all need to educate ourselves concerning autism. You, I, everybody has to know better. If we want to help the next person, we have to know better first. Yes. We'll take this quick break, and when we come back, we'll be wrapping up the show, but not before we look into our crystal ball to tell you some of the stories that we possibly will be tracking next week. Do stay with us. We're now at the home stretch of the show, the final part 3, if you want to call it, or disc 3. And this is where we go into our crystal ball to take a look at some of the stock picks or stories that we possibly will be tracking come the following week. Our first stop will be Togo in West Africa, where we hear Togo has delayed parliamentary and regional elections amid tensions following controversial constitutional reforms. Now, the reform approved by lawmakers last week replaced the presidential system with a parliamentary one. Opposition parties have rejected this reform, fearing that it could let President Faure Gnassingbé stay in power longer than he should. This is almost what happened in Senegal, but of course, you know how that story ended.
And the drought disaster in Zimbabwe follows as Zimbabwe has declared a state of disaster over a devastating drought that's sweeping across much of the southern Africa. Zimbabwean President Emerson Mnangagwa said the nation needs $2 billion for humanitarian assistance. President Mnangagwa has said that the country's top priority is securing food for all Zimbabweans.
And the third one brings us back home to Nigeria. This one is going to definitely interest everybody because electricity already is a challenge in Nigeria, and now we're talking about power supply again. Now, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, has hiked electricity tariffs for Band A customers by 230% from 68 naira per kilowatt hour to 225 naira per kilowatt hour. With the new order issued by NERC, Band A will no longer enjoy federal government subsidy on electricity. The NERC has indicated that a total of 1,975,385 electricity consumers in Nigeria would be affected by its recent hike in tariff. Niyi, I'm not sure I'm a Band A customer.
I want to say I'm not sure I'm a Band A customer. I'm not sure I fall within that category.
Because, to be honest, yeah, I read through this. It's still, I would say, we're still getting more information about this. But I read through this and I found out that the federal government is saying that they can no longer continue to pay subsidy on electricity. But the major problem is, and there's been conversations going on, people are saying, if electricity is constant, Nigerians will pay, and we will pay.
Of course.
But the problem now is it is not constant, and the alternatives are not cheap, unfortunately. Petrol to run generator is not cheap. Diesel is equally not cheap. And then inverters, alternate sources. Solar panels. I'm telling you, neither of them is cheap. So it's, Nigerians are almost going to be stuck between a rock and a hard place. Is there a solution?
But the truth is that for now, firstly, I'm happy that I'm not in Band A. Let's put that out there.
Now everybody's denying Band A.
Yeah, the government has said they're going to review. They're still going to remove some people from the Band A this thing. But I feel there's a lot that the federal government can still do. I don't know what the old plan is on the long run as to what this will come out to be. But they need to understand that you need to make something available before you can compel people to actually pay for the quality of whatever it is you're delivering. A lot of people are talking about the Abia states today, and they're saying, oh, uninterrupted power supply. They didn't start today.
Of course.
It was a plan that took years and took months. Yeah. But I think that they are starting somewhere. I, however, feel that it should be a step-by-step process. The government has always tried to use a form of, oh, let's just intrude into it. This is what we want, this one, but it can be a process. Okay, increase it by a little, turn by turn, in mid-terms, short terms, and when you increase them, then people can ease into it. You just don't force it down. It's reminding me of electricity. Well, anyway, let's move on.
Anyways, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Report Desk Africa returns by the grace of God next week, Thursday, when we'll be looking into other stories. My name is Bernard Akede. It's been a pleasure co-hosting this show with, of course, Niyi Omoniyi. Thank you so much, Niyi.
Thank you, Bernard. It's really been a pleasure.
All right.
See you next week.
See you next week.